Alright, back from the previous lesson. I just want to go over a couple things. First, I changed some stuff in the main file. Go back to your index.html and be sure to add the new div main content, because in order to better match up with the rest of the website, everything is wrapped in their own sections. For instance, like this one is a navigation section, this one's a main content section, and this one's a footer section, whereas before this was just sitting in the middle of the site without any container around it per se. So after that, I just want to go over the box model. So what the box model is the way browsers display elements in HTML is first they have the content. I'm going to go ahead and search this up and show it to you. First they have the content, then they have the padding, then they have the border, then they have the margin. So if I were to have a box of text saying hello, and then I was to add a 10 pixel padding to it and then a border, the border wouldn't be around the text. It would be around the padding of the text. So if the padding is 10 pixels, it's going to be 10 pixels around the text. There's going to be 10 pixels of space between the actual text and the border. And then if I were to add a margin, that would mean that there's going to be an extra 10 pixels of space if I were to set it to 10 pixels, where nothing would be touching that element. So if there was, for instance, a navigation menu above it, and I was to give it a margin of 10 pixels, nothing could get within 10 pixels of the farthest element, of the farthest thing in the element, including the border. So that's the box model. And hopefully this picture illustrates it. See, there's the content, the padding, the border, and then the margin. And then there's floats. So in CSS, we float elements sometimes, and we can float them left or right. So if you float an element to the left, it's going to try to go to the right of the element before it. And if you float it to the right, it's going to go to the left of the element before it. Don't worry if you don't get these right now. I'm just trying to give you a general overview of what these things are, because I will be using them in the website. And then there's specificity, which is basically saying you can specify how to style an object like the body, but if I get more specific and give it a different attribute, that attribute will override the very vague statement like the whole body is going to have this text. I hope that makes sense. So the first thing I did was I added text align center, and if we go back to the website, everything is now centered, which looks a little bit better in my opinion. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go look for a picture to add. So I'm going to go look for a default profile picture. That looks good enough. Go ahead and view image, save image as default avatar. I'm going to make a new folder where my index.html is, name it images, and then type in my photo. Now I did that because if you remember back in our index.html we have a folder named images that has an image named myphoto.png. So now if we refresh, our image should come up, which is great, except that it's ginormous. So I'm going to look for a smaller image. This one seems good enough. Let's go ahead and save this. And refresh. And there you go. It is now a different image, which is smaller and better for our needs. So now that the image is there, everything should work correctly. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and style the navigation. So first let me give an example. So if I were to say that the navigation font would be Georgia and save it, this should become Georgia, and it does. Now if I was to become more specific and say navigation UL and say font family Arial, it should go back to Arial because it was more specific. That's what I'm talking about. So let's delete that, and then we're going to go ahead and style this. We're going to give our navigation a width of 100%, meaning to say that because the wrapper is 500 pixels and the navigation is going to be 100% of that, it should be 500 pixels as well. It will be relative to the wrapper, and nothing should change. So we're going to give it a height of 30 pixels. We're going to float it to the left, and we're going to give it a margin of 0 and padding of 0. And then we're going to give it a list style of none. So list style is basically how the list is styled, and that has to do with the bullets and whatnot. So although they might not disappear, oh, the text disappeared. Yeah. Well, anyway, we're gonna fix this. It's behind the image right now, but yeah. So let's go ahead and move on to the navigation UL, which is the unordered list, and we're gonna type in display block. So the way display works is you can either display it as inline, meaning the text will flow around all the other objects in the page, or you can display it as block, where it will go on its own line and take up the whole line unless specified otherwise, such as giving it a specific width or height. So we like to display block because we don't want it to flow around things, we want to give it its own properties. And we're going to give it an overflow of hidden. What this does is, instead of not giving it a height, it gives the navigation a height based on the things inside of it. So I'll go ahead and refresh that, and nothing has changed. So we're going to go ahead and keep updating this. Let's go to navigation LI. So what this is doing is we're styling each thing. So the first thing was UL, and now we're styling the list items. And right now they're still horizontal, as you can see by the bullets. So let's go ahead and float them to the left. And hit refresh. And now they are all to the left. And the bullets are blocking. So we're going to get rid of these bullets by typing in list style type none and saving it. And now the bullets are gone. And then we're going to want to display these as a block as well, rather than text, and that's good. So we're going to move on to the links. So A are the links, and we're going to style just the links in the list, which is all of them. They're all links. And we're going to float it to the left again. We're going to display as a block again. We're going to add the padding. I'm going to put 10 pixels on either side, and 10 pixels on the top and the bottom, and 20 pixels on either side, and save that. And it should space out a little bit more. And let's give it a font weight of bold, so that we really let the user know you can click this. It's important. Let's go back to our main website and see that this div is main content, which is overlapping our navigation. So we're going to go ahead and style main content and type in clear both. And let's give it a margin top of 20 pixels. Oh, I see where the problem is. So let's go ahead and remove this height that we have on navigation, because our actual navigation is overflowing it. So let's save that and refresh. And now you can see we have a decent looking navigation, and our website's starting to look like something. I'll be going into more depth in the next tutorial, and I'll see you then.